All right. Welcome to the Team Talk.
Team Talk 15.
Yay.
The longest show on the planet. We soon have more episodes than Doctor Who. Or So, what is a Team Talk? We got the comments from recent Team Talks. When people see their first Team Talk, they are confused. Who are we? What is it? What are we talking about? Since we assume that every one of you watching has seen all prior Team Talks, every second of it, and knows everything we ever said.
I know I have.
So we just build on top of that. But of course, we should actually
reintroduce ourselves.
Make the topic a bit broader and explain more from what we explained before as well.
Yeah.
Like, who are these people in front of you right now? Who are we? What is an AXIOM Team Talk? So let's break up the word. It's pretty simple. AXIOM, that's the project.
Right there.
Team, that's the people working on the project. And we are just two talking heads now for many people working behind us, basically, metaphorically. And we talk about stuff that's happened in the project recently. That's basically the introduction.
It's going to happen.
What is in the Team Talk? Exactly. Future aspects, prior development aspects, things we are working on right now, showing stuff. This is the content of this Team Talk and all other Team Talks, basically.
Right.
So who are we?
I'm Max.
I'm Max. He's doing mostly technical documentation. He's a photographer, filmmaker, DOP, and occasionally comes visit me and wants to get an update of all the things that happened. And
we film those and just stamp Team Talk on it.
That's it. Very easy. But it takes a lot of effort and time, so we would love to do it more often. But it's just
so time-consuming to do all of this and to document. It's really a problem with documentation in general.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who am I?
Who are you?
We just discussed for half an hour what the proper job title is, and we haven't come to a conclusion.
Really one, because you're kind of the does-it-all guy.
Yeah. So the housekeeper, AXIOM housekeeping, basically.
Yeah, but not just that, even
well,
more.
Development, mechanical stuff, website communications, coding, AXIOM remote.
Chairman of the association.
Chairman. Chair.
Shittiest superhero of all time.
He has the power of a man and a chair.
He's not very fast, but very comfortable.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, we are reporting again from the front of AXIOM development, not from Uranus this time, as you have probably noticed from our fancy living room interior. So we know that we are slightly behind schedule. Slightly, yes. But I mean, we are trying one step at a time. The team is small, so many challenges, but still we are keeping at it and solving problems and challenges as we go.
Yeah.
But it's a community project. Everyone's doing this in their free time.
Yeah, it's really complex stuff at the same time.
Nobody gets paid, so we're not a startup that just raises capital money and then spends it all until it's gone. But we are rather a lot of volunteers working in their free time. And everybody has to get food for bread somehow as well. And
That's how you say it, food for bread.
Food for bread, food for
Right.
No, you don't say that.
Who's bread?
Money for food. Money for bread. Who's bread?
Yeah. Is he part of the team? Sorry.
So we all have side jobs, as you say, but the jobs that actually feed us.
Yeah, we're not doing this at all. Just a single job.
So we hope that at some point this project will actually be able to feed us or to sustain the development and production financially, but currently it doesn't. So until we reach that point, it takes a lot of sweat, energy, and blood, so to say, from a lot of people to keep everything going. And we're happy to do it, but it just takes time. That's the core of what we are doing, basically. The only people currently getting paid in the project are those actually building hardware, like the hard labor conveyor belt job where you solder for a long time. And obviously nobody wants to do that unpaid, unfortunately. If you love soldering and live in Vienna,
and have
and have a good paying job already. It leaves you a lot of free time. You know where to find us. Yeah.
All right. But now let's check out what has been done.
Indeed,
what has been
because
accomplished so far. Because
we haven't actually gone out and stayed on the swimming pool all the time. While it's very hot and we are staying in here, we've been soldering and working on mechanical parts, and that is something I want to show you next, I guess. So, one of the first start-off topics is, of course, we are here in Telehase production facilities.
Yeah.
You have seen the tour of the downstairs electronics manufacturing facility and everything.
Or if you haven't, go watch it.
We will link here to the recent team talk. It was 14.1 or 2, I think. Yeah. And what's currently being worked on is, of course, we want to produce more AXIOM Betas downstairs. We are tired or getting tired because we are very slow with hand soldering all the boards, which we are still doing.
But what is downstairs?
Downstairs in Tele is the production floor. Upstairs is the office floor, where we are currently. And downstairs is the 2 SMT lines, for example, where the electronic gets made very fast compared to how we make the hardware.
It's kind of the point of being here in this facility.
Yes. So all the effort into scaling up production, building more cameras so we can ship them more efficiently, faster, higher quantities, is currently in preparation. And hopefully at the end of summer we should have first boards running through the manufacturing lines. We'll start off with a
few test runs.
Test board, which is not actually a part of the camera, but will kind of save us time later on to tune the SMT stencil, to tune the processes of how the data is handed over, how the machines get the position data for pick and place, how the deep paneling, where the individual boards in a bigger panel get taken apart, and how the handling is. So hopefully, even though this is additional work and effort now, it will take us less time and save effort in the end when we start with the production of the actual boards in the camera.
And once all this is sorted out, it should go down quite quickly.
Exactly. The one machine, which we looked at recently in the last team talk, which is placing all the components, does 13,000 components per hour. So when I do them, it's probably, I don't know, one component every 10 seconds or so. So
really?
Maybe not even 10 seconds.
It's like super fast.
Yeah. So that should change how we are able to produce hardware significantly, like dramatically. Next big topic, and that's covering probably an entire episode of the Team Talk, is the big news of the first metal prototypes of the AXIOM Beta Compact enclosure being done. And as you can see here in front of us, we have some parts on display. But what would all that fun be if we wouldn't kind of go through every single part and show how we assemble every single screw in real time?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Where do we start? From the bottom up?
Yeah, from the bottom up. So the base part, the bottom part, is called the cap bottom.
Yeah.
Because the general idea of the enclosure design is inspired by traditional compact photography cameras, where you have this silver top and bottom sandwiches.
Yeah,
and between that you have a black, sometimes leather, sometimes just colored black part that holds the lens and so on. Or contains the lens, basically.
I know these cameras you're talking about. Yeah.
Excellent. So the cap bottom has several features, like you have on both sides 1/8 of an inch attachment points. We opted for not using cut threads on purpose there, or on any attachment point on the AXIOM Beta Compact actually, but instead we're using steel thread inserts.
They are really cool. I didn't know they exist.
Make it a bit more expensive, it's a bit more complicated to add, but it makes the thread itself much stronger. I've seen so many cages and camera bodies where the aluminum cut thread breaks out over time.
Yeah.
You see the tripod mount on the bottom. These are also thread inserts, 2/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch.
If the inserts wear out, you can just drill them out and
That
push
would be
new.
also a possibility. So the insert itself is much stronger, but you can replace it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then
So smart.
we have the cooling area, like holes into the enclosure at the bottom and at the front.
Yeah.
And
Also, the whole thing is a cooling area because it's made from aluminum and it can dissipate the heat very well.
indeed,
And distribute.
the thing we added in the latest edition, which is not in this what I'm currently holding, is that I used this space here, which is all solid currently in this old revision, for a Kensington lock.
Of course. Nice.
Next
Next
goes
part,
the
yeah.
so-called front plate, because it goes in the front, surprise. And this attaches to the cap bottom with 2 screws and hosts the image sensor holder, which is a separate part. And the idea here is that if we in the future have a different image sensor, since everything is modular and replaceable, just replacing the image sensor holder, but keeping the front plate will be all that's necessary for making the camera suitable for a new image sensor in terms of mechanical assembly.
Sure.
And the image sensor holder is kind of tightly fit to the shape of the image sensor. It also transfers the heat from the image sensor to the metal of the enclosure. These are kind of exactly like a heat sink, basically.
Yeah.
Fins, heat fins.
Heat fins, right?
And something I added also very recently, just before we started ordering the parts, is that there's another modular opening in the front plate. And this you can take off. Currently it's a kind of a placeholder. In the future you can attach a board in here, and the electronics could be exposed to the front for, let's say, additional connectors that connect to lens, motor control for aperture, iris, for focus pulling, or whatever. Or you could also use external sensors that measure light, do whatever you want on the front. You could also add light sensors or a second camera for depth measuring, for example, time of flight, 3D scanning. So this area is kind of a future extension area for the shield, which is basically just underneath in the PCB stack. And by this plate connects to the outside world, so to say. Cool. And then, of course, the lens mount itself. It's a 2-part assembly. The first layer is the so-called filter holder. Currently we use it for UV infrared filtering. And on top of that goes the lens mount, which in our case is the E-mount. And there you attach the lens and everything's solidly screwed together, with the front plate also providing the stray light filters for the image sensor. Here we have the side plate, which currently features a rosette which can be attached in 3 different places. Currently I'm thinking about redesigning this so it's not just one rosette that can be used in either one of these, but you currently can't use 2 rosettes on the most outward positions because they would overlap. And so I'm thinking about adding 4 additional holes. So you can either use 1 rosette in 3 different positions or 2 rosettes on the very outmost positions at the same time.
Cool.
And at the back of the side plate here we have kind of guide frames for sliding in the cartridge kind of for plug-in module extensions, like HDMI, which can be slided in from the back. And these guides kind of hold the cartridge in place. And then they are screwed in with 2 screws from the outside, so you don't need tools to change the plug-in modules, for example. The opposite side of the side plate with the rosettes is a bent metal piece, and this is much thinner, as you probably notice, as the rest of the camera, which is all designed in a very solid and massive way, kind of. The reason for that is that on this side there are no attachment points, no hard points, nothing that really has any force applied to the enclosure. And as you probably see here, there are a lot of drilled holes here with threads. And the idea for this is that you have kind of flexible area for attaching anything that goes beyond the current compact enclosure at the backside. That could be a battery mount attachment, could be a holder that attaches to the AXIOM remote in the future, or could be anything else that we in the future envision to put at the back of the camera. And this side contains plates which host the connectors, like the shield, extension shield to the side, or all the connectors from the power board, from the microSAT.
USB.
Ethernet, power supply, and so on, yes. Then on the top, like the cap bottom, we have the cap top. And that is where the air exits the enclosure, basically. So we have a 60 by 60 millimeter fan, a small mesh between the holes to the outside and the fan to filter out any larger particles from the top from falling into the electronics. Then we have 3 mount points again facing the top side, and 2 mount points all 1/4 of an inch towards the side, and another 2 extension areas where plates are added into the cap top. The one side is envisioned to in the future host the power button, basically, where you can turn on the camera, or you have a light that shows if the camera is running.
Probably good,
Indeed. The second area is currently unoccupied. I have no idea what we will put there in the future, but it could be buttons to control the camera. It could be joystick, maybe, or additional connectors to connect a monitor, or a viewfinder, or some other kind of controller. We'll see. It also feeds basically to the shield in front of the stack-up. It's the same area as the connector to the front plate, where you can also have electronics attached.
I'm gonna have to buy more magic arms.
So as you probably notice, the current cap bottom has kind of a rough finish. And there are already some scratches, because it's easily scratched. And the reason for that is that simply I forgot to mark the parts which are silver or natural aluminum to be anodized. I only marked the black parts to be anodized. And what we tried now is to also anodize the cap bottom and cap top, and you see that the surface is much smoother and it's like reduced scratch.
It's more sturdy,
Exactly, you can't easily scratch it, and the color is also kind of more shiny or more smooth. And that's the way it would actually be in the end. So we're also experimenting with ceramic coating currently, which should have a similar effect as the anodizing, but well, just different colors, try different approaches and see how the surface ends up. So as we ship the current developer kits, there isn't really any enclosure. So we call the aluminum part that holds together the lens mount, the tripod mount, and the electronics. We call it the skeleton framework, because like in our body, the skeleton kind of holds everything together. But since the purpose of the developer kit is to allow access anywhere, there's no point in really enclosing anything. So you can't actually get to the hardware anymore. So developers want access to all the electronics and so on. So the skeleton framework is perfect for that purpose. Then the next step was originally the simple enclosure, which was meant to be 3D printed by everyone, but that proved not to be too popular, unfortunately. Nobody used it, or nobody worked on it.
It's also not so easy to print, I guess.
Yeah, and
all these flat surfaces
probably
really
doesn't provide as much protection as people envisioned for an enclosure. So we went straight for the AXIOM Beta Compact, which is, like the word says, a very smallish edition of the camera, which kind of surrounds just the most essential electronics inside the camera. And there's still on the horizon the AXIOM Beta Extended, which turns this kind of photo-sized form factor camera into a full-featured shoulder mount film camera, and adds the AXIOM remote, adds the AXIOM recorder, and anything that's still in the works for attaching to this. And as with the electronics, where everything's constantly evolving, I know that sounds scary because it's never finished, but it just means that even if something is finished, we'll still try and improve it even further. So if anything can be made better or newer or more advanced, we'll keep pushing those changes and improving the already finished hardware. And the same applies to the enclosure. So what we have here will already be a bit different in the next revision. And even when we start shipping enclosures, we still want to incorporate improvements and additions over time. So if you have ideas or want to make something better and contribute to, for example, the mount points, or rosettes are not cool anymore, let's do, I don't know, lasers from the side.
Yeah, please, the lasers.
Then we're happy to incorporate it, and we will definitely not order thousands of these pieces each, but do them in smaller charges, and even then improve the enclosure and the components and parts over time and bring that to the people as we go along.
But they look already very sophisticated.
Indeed.
Even with these slots on the side, but the air is cooled down, and that the air holes are recessed, so when it's mounted, then it can still suck air.
It's a very solid piece of equipment. I handed the assembly, fully kind of assembled, to a few people who are not into filmmaking or photography at all. So they said, I don't know what it is, but it feels very solid.
Good, I suppose.
Yes.
No, very good, actually. Well done.
Thank you.
3 minutes left, come on.
Faster. Let's get back to the hot work again now that the team talk is done.
Yeah.
And before we melt, the camera overheats a third time, we'll better quit fast. So tune in next time when it's again team talk time.
Maybe it will be a bigger team.
Maybe. Let's see who we can encourage to join us here.
Yeah.